Have you ever looked at a picture of the Appalachian Mountains or maybe driven through them and just felt something different? A kind of deep, ancient mystery in the air? Well, today we're going to try and unpack that exact feeling. We're diving into the history and the stories to figure out what makes this region so incredibly unique.
And that's really the big question, isn't it? People who visit, and even folks who've lived there their whole lives, they all talk about this mood that you just don't find anywhere else. It's kind of eerie, mysterious, and it's really hard to put your finger on exactly what it is.
This description just nails it. It's not just scary or creepy, it's hauntingly beautiful. It's that mix of awe and a little bit of unease that makes the folklore there so powerful. So where does that feeling come from? Well, our first clue is literally the ground itself.
To solve this mystery, we have to go way, way back. The story here doesn't start with people. It starts with the mountains themselves. Their incredible age is the foundation for everything, and I mean everything that follows.
Just let that sink in for a second. Older than bones. These mountains predate most of the life that we recognize. They are ancient on a scale that is almost impossible for our brains to really wrap around. That's right, these mountains were around when all the continents were smashed together into one giant landmass. They were here before the dinosaurs, and get this, they're even older than Saturn's rings. We're not just talking about history here, we're talking about deep planetary time. And here's a wild fact that really drives it home. The Appalachians were once part of the very same mountain range as the Scottish Highlands. They're two halves of the same ancient whole, just torn apart by an ocean over hundreds of millions of years. That shared, deep past, that's our first big clue.
Okay, so we've got this ancient land. Our next clue is all about how that land shaped the people who came to live there. And you can find that clue in the words they speak, a dialect that's every bit as unique as the landscape. You really can't talk about Appalachia without understanding what a holler is. It's not just a shout. The word perfectly describes the geography, these little isolated valleys that are tucked away between the mountain ridges. This terrain created these pockets of culture where traditions and language could grow in their own way, almost totally cut off from the outside world. And then you get words like fixin'. On the surface, it just means about to do something, but it's more than that, isn't it? It has this sense of purpose, of getting ready. It's an active word that really paints a picture of a hands-on, community-focused way of life.
But this is where the language ties directly back to our mystery. A haint. It's not just any ghost, it's the specific Appalachian word for a spirit. Now think about that. The fact that there's a common, everyday word for a supernatural being tells you everything you need to know about how close the spirit world feels in daily life. So you see the connection? The land shaped the language, and the language made space for the spirits. So, we have an ancient land and a unique language. Our third and final clue is, of course, the people themselves. It's this amazing blend of cultures who all brought their own stories with them and wove them right into the fabric of the mountains. See, the folklore of Appalachia isn't just from one place. It's a true melting pot. You've got the Scots-Irish bringing their tales of the fair folk. You have German traditions. You have incredibly rich African folklore. And of course, the deep, ancient stories of indigenous peoples like the Cherokee. All of these different streams of storytelling just flowed together in those hollers and became something new.
So why did telling stories become so important? Well, this quote says it all, perfectly. When you're deep in the mountains, isolated, and there's no electricity, no modern distractions, stories were everything. They were your news, your history lessons, your entertainment, and your warnings, all passed down for generations. All right, now let's see how all three of our clues, the ancient land, the special language, and this blend of cultures all come together in a real Appalachian legend. Let's talk about the Chicken Lady of Ocoee Lake.
So our story starts, as so many of these stories do, with someone living on the edges of society. An eccentric woman living by herself out in a remote place, known for being, well, a little different.
And here's where the old world slams into the new. The government shows up to build a dam, a huge symbol of modern progress. But she holds on to her land, her home. She just refuses to go.
And this is the tragic historical core of the story. Her defiance leads to her death, as she's swallowed up by the very lake created by the forces she was resisting. But right here, this is where history stops and folklore takes over.
And there it is. Her true story transforms into a cautionary tale. It becomes a haint story.
She's now a spirit of the lake, a vengeful presence. It's the perfect example of a real event evolving into a supernatural legend that's used to explain the very real dangers of the water.
So we've gathered all our clues. We have the ancient land, the isolating language, the rich mix of storytellers, and a living legend. So let's put it all together and finally answer that question we started with.
You see, that unique feeling in Appalachia isn't just one thing. It's like a recipe. First, you start with a landscape that's literally older than bones. Then you add the isolating terrain of the Hollers, which lets traditions grow strong. You mix in all these different storytelling cultures, and then you just let those stories simmer in the quiet and the dark for generations. What you get is a folklore that feels like it grew right out of the soil itself.
So that unsettling, hauntingly beautiful feeling, it's the weight of millions of years of geology right under your feet. It's the echo of countless stories told in the dark. It's the feeling of being in a place where the line between our world and the spirit world has always been just a little bit thinner.
And that leaves us with one last question to chew on. The stories we've talked about are the ones that people pass down. But in a place this ancient, a place that was here long before us, it just makes you wonder, what other stories do these mountains hold? And who or what might still be out there listening?